It's easy to grow hundreds of radishes in a single growing season, and it's just as easy to collect hundreds of radish seeds. Join me today as I share with you how I collect and save radish seeds. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and I grew radishes in a number of different garden beds this year because they're such a great plant. You can put the seed in the ground and be harvesting delicious radishes usually in about a month. But in this bed, I let about a dozen of those radishes set seed for the intent of saving the seed from these beautiful pods. You need to go into this with the understanding that to collect radish seeds, you need to set aside a section of a garden bed that serves no other purpose than growing radish seeds. A number of the other plants in our garden, tomatoes and cucumbers and squashes, we can let those fruits grow and then harvest the seeds from those fruits. Well, with radishes, normally we're harvesting the root. We have to allow the plant to continue growing and then flower and set seed and for those seeds to mature on the plant. And during that entire process, there really isn't much we can be doing in this section of the bed other than just waiting for those seeds to develop. The radish plant will begin to set flowers usually after it's been exposed to a prolonged period of hot temperatures. The flowers are usually white, sometimes pink, or a light lavender color. And those flowers will gradually turn into green pods. And it's in these green pods that the seeds begin to form. And then over time, those green pods will turn brown and begin to dry on the plant. And that's what we're really looking for, is those dried pods. That's what we're going to collect. While it only takes about a month for that root to develop and for us to harvest and eat it, it takes about 3 to 4 months for the plant to grow, set flowers, and then develop that seed. So you have to give yourself some time. This works best if you sow the seeds in spring and then allow the plants to grow during the summer, because it's that summer heat that causes the bolting, causes that flower stalk to shoot up. If you sow your seeds in autumn, well, then don't expect to get any flowers. There's not going to be enough time, and the temperatures will just be too cool. My tools of choice when it comes to collecting radish seeds are a brown paper bag with the name of the radish written on it and a set of pruning shears. And then it's a simple matter of taking a cluster of these dried pods, allowing it to fall in the bag, and then moving through the plant, putting these pods into the paper bag. If you're not saving a lot of seeds, you could just come snap off a few of these pods, and as long as they've dried on the plant, these can actually be broken open and the seeds sown right away. But I want to collect as many seeds as I can, which is why I'm collecting clusters and putting them in the paper bag. These are the seeds I'm going to be growing in my garden next year throughout the growing season. The more seeds, the more radishes I can get. Now this year I grew 2 different varieties of radish, the cherry bell and a daikon radish. And there is a possibility of cross-pollination between radish varieties if you're growing multiple types. To try to circumvent the problem, I grew the radishes at slightly different times. So I started the daikon radishes first and allowed them to flower and go to seed first, followed by the cherry bell. Same process, allowing them to go to seed. But by the time the cherry bells were flowering and seeding, I'd already harvested and pulled up the daikon radish plants. Now, this is an important consideration because saving seeds of open pollinated plants or heirloom varieties will allow you to grow the same plant next year. So cherry bell is an heirloom. I can save these seeds, sow these seeds, and get more cherry bell radishes. But if I had the daikon and the cherry bell growing at the same time, in essence, I'm creating a hybrid. And so there's no telling what that seed would give me. And if I were growing a hybrid radish variety and saved those seeds, same thing. There's no telling what kind of plant would result because hybrid seeds do not bear true once you save them. So, because I know all of these seeds have not been contaminated by another radish variety, none of my neighbors are growing radishes, which could also be a problem if their garden was close to my garden. I'm just going to go ahead and continue harvesting these clusters of seeds, and then I'll meet you inside to show you how I get these ready for saving. And so with my bags of cherry bell and daikon radish pods, we're ready to collect the seeds. And the process is pretty simple. The tools I'm using are a plate. This is just a paper plate with a shallow rim. I use a folded piece of paper and a toothpick. And I'll show you what this is for in just a bit. And then a bowl or something to put all of the extra material in after we collect the seeds. Now, I think it's interesting to note that the cherry bell radish pod is short and plump, whereas the daikon radish pod is actually long and slender. But the process is the same for both. So I'll take some of these groupings of pods that I trimmed off the plant and just put them onto my plate. And then throw the extra in the bowl. Inside here are the seeds. So let's just go ahead and take them out. I'll start by just using my thumbnails to pull apart the pods. And all the seeds inside are attached to little membranes. And most of them will fall out, but that's where the toothpick comes in because a few of the stubborn ones might stay behind, and there's usually one or two right at the peak of the stem. And so I'll move all the extra material off to the side. The reason I use a shallow plate is because these round little seeds can roll, and so on a flat surface, don't be surprised if they don't roll off the table. And that's all there is to it. Just letting these drop, breaking open the pods, and collecting as many of these seeds as we can. And so when I have a good portion of the pods separated from the seed, I'll go ahead and move to the next step, which is cleaning them up and separating out the seeds from all this extra that remains. And so I'm going to use the fact that they roll to my advantage now, because just by shaking the plate a little bit, I can get the seeds to roll to the side. And if there's a little flat seed that doesn't want to roll, chances are it's not a viable seed to start with, so I'll leave that behind. And so it looks like we've separated out the seed from all this stuff that we're going to discard, throw into the compost pile. And so now we'll take our paper and we'll just take all these seeds and move them onto the paper. And as you do this, if you come across any little seeds that look like they're deformed, small, and probably won't grow, there's no reason to move them forward. But I'm going to take a little jar that I already have labeled and prepared for these seeds, and then just pour them into the jar. And that's all there is to that step. And then all this extra material goes into the bowl. And we start over again with another set of pods. And I'll just keep doing this until I've harvested all the seeds. Now, I like to save my seeds in jars, and these little jars can actually hold a lot of seeds. So I wouldn't be surprised if all the pods from this bag actually fit into this little jar. But just that first round of seeds, just a rough estimate of how many are in here. There's probably 75 or 80 seeds in this jar already. And so, for instance, an average number of seeds, as I break apart this pod, it gave me 8 seeds from that pod. And as I break apart this one, it looks like there's another 6 or 7. And so, depending on how many pods you can have an awful lot of seeds, and they don't take up much space. You can also just save jars that you have from around the kitchen. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to buy like I did with these, and I'll put a link to these below. I just really like their size, and I can store a lot of them in a small space. I also have these envelopes, and so because these seeds are already dry, instead of putting it in a jar, I could put the seeds into one of these seed saver envelopes just as well. So it really doesn't matter. It's just when it comes to saving the seeds for a long period of time, you want to store them in a nice, cool, dark, dry location. Because I allowed these to dry on the plant, they're dry enough already. So I'll put them in my container. For me, it's storing in a closet or down in the basement. And for now, I'll just keep going through and collecting some more of these seeds. And then I'll show you here in just a second a difference with the daikon radish. The daikon radish pods are noticeably bigger, and the seeds themselves are noticeably bigger than the cherry bell smaller radish, which is not surprising because the daikon radish can easily be a foot long underground. And so the difference between them, I think, is quite drastic. But the process is the same, regardless of the size of the seeds and the radish. So I'll separate out the pods from the seeds, put them on my paper, and then pour all of these seeds into a jar that I have prepared already. And we're done with that portion. Now, one of the nice things about saving radish seeds is that unlike a lot of vegetable seeds that only last 2 or 3 years, I can expect on average these radish seeds to last for 5 years, maybe even 6 years. So this process of allowing the radishes to go to seed and take up a good space of a garden bed, you only need to do this every 4 or 5 years. And as long as you save enough seeds to last for all of those seasons, then you'll be good. That's one reason why I've filled this bag with pods. And my guess is that I'll probably have maybe 300 or 400 of the cherry bell seeds, and probably at least 100 or 200 of the daikon radish seeds. So for me, yes, these can definitely last for the next 5 years before I need to repeat this process again. But as you can see, it's pretty simple and something I encourage you to do. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.